Good evening, everyone. Today I wanted to talk to you about autism and more specifically autism in high school or in lower school. And with that, I mean for females especially, because I don't think there has been enough attention brought to this in spite of everything that I've been through. It took until last year for me, or the year before that, before I finally found out that I was autistic or that I'm neurodivergent. And I'm not 100% sure which one it is yet. I mean, it's mostly autism that I do know, but we're not 100% sure if it's multiple things, which means that it would be neurodivergent, but autism is definitely a part of it. But when it comes to schools, lower schools and high schools, elementary schools, I'm not 100% sure like what the differences are in each country, because I know that there are things like secondary school and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure how to name all of those or what age category to put them in, because here you just have the basis school, which is base school, loosely translated, which would be elementary, and then you go from there to high school, and that's basically it. So, and obviously from there you go to college. But what I've noticed is I was very, and I mean very problematic as a child, especially in my teens when things really started to take off. I was always very different, and as we probably, if you know something about autism, then you know that most women with autism are diagnosed while they're already an adult, right? Because apparently it's very hard to diagnose a female, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I had so many problems going on. I mean, I kept skipping school, I kept complaining about problems with bullying, and there were so many different things toward me than toward other people or toward other classmates and toward other schoolmates. And I just keep wondering why they never talk to my parents like, you should have her tested for anything, anything at all, right? Because looking back at it, I mean, it's very obvious that something is going on, but the only thing they cared about is doing the job as a teacher. They did not care about something being different about me or something being wrong, or they did not realize or at least say anything like, could you maybe have this, or could you maybe have that, or you know, she should see a specialist or whatever. They never did that. They kept reprimanding me or um, giving me what's the form of disciplinary action, I suppose, toward me trying to get me to school. I had to go to court at least 5 times, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I had to go to court because I never could stand school. I was bullied so much, or I was so different. Things were just completely out of control, and it's just there were so many different types of things going on at the same time. Like, it's very easily for somebody like me to get overstimulated, to get just everything going on, and everything would bother me, from the sound that the light would make above my head. Like, there was this large, I'm not 100% if you call it the same thing, but we call it TL lamps, which is like these tube lamps. They would make this buzzing sound, and apparently nobody else would hear it or notice it. It would drive me absolutely insane. Like, it would drive me mad. and I would say something about it or whatever, or would keep looking at it, and the teacher was like, look at your work, you need to do the assignment, whatever. Nobody ever said anything like, you need to be tested for this, this, or this. Nobody at all ever bothered to contact my parents like, she's different, she has issues, maybe look at a specialist. And yeah, so the disciplinary action that I would have is, like I said, I went to court. I got placed out of home, into a group home from, I'm not 100% sure, is it 15 to 17? Could be 15 to 17. My timeline as a child, like, or as a teen, it's not 100% correct, because I lost most of my memory of it because of trauma. At least they say it's a form of trauma. You just block things off. And so my coping mechanism for that was just blocking things off. I don't remember a lot of it. But I remember I went to court multiple times. And yeah, my mom actually, at one point, she had to pay a fine because they were blaming her for not getting me to school. But the judge noticed that she couldn't afford it, buy her clothes and buy, other things that I'm not going to talk about right now. And so they let it go, right? They made sure that she didn't have to pay the fine. It wasn't exactly a high fine. It was, I think it was like 70 or something, 70 euro. Which is quite a lot for us, but it's not high in a way of the way fines go, right? But again, nobody ever questioned whether or not something was different about me. And like I said, this really needs to be brought to attention, especially for the women of us out there who are going through the same thing that I am, just being terrified in school because there is too much noise, because there's too much people, because bullying, because it's just, it was an absolute nightmare. And I'm surprised that I'm able to speak about it now, to be honest, because it was a traumatic experience for me. I suppose for most teenagers, high school can be a bit of a stressful thing or even a traumatic thing. I mean, I'm not the only one who's been bullied, of course. And I'm not gonna be the last. I'm just one of a number at that point in case of bullying. But yeah, it's just people don't realize that kids need to be looked at more closely when it comes to behavioral things, when it comes to things like having autism or God knows how many different types of things there are. Because I know that people with autism also often get misdiagnosed as ADD or ADHD, which I was diagnosed with when I was a child as an ADHD. Later on, around 16 years old, something must have happened. I don't know what. But for some reason, the whole ADHD part, the whole speedy part of me just stopped. And they told me it changed into ADD, which is just an attention disorder without the hyperactive part. Which is weird because they say that isn't possible, and yet they said it happened with me. And yeah, it's a bit of a thing. Like, why did nobody pay attention, right? How did I get dragged to court 5 times, have get reprimanded or having disciplinary action from the school, to the point where, you know, I just stopped going to school completely. And the first year was not as bad in terms of me not being there. It was sort of okay, but at that point I had a friend in class, and so it was a little bit easier to have somebody and not focus so much on the bullying. But after that, I mean, things started to get worse and worse, and it just started to get really bad, to the point where I did not want to go to school anymore. And I just wanted to be at home all day. I just wanted to play games or just listen to music or whatever I would be doing. But I tell you this much, I've never had one day in school, not one, where I actually had fun. Not one. And I think that's sad in a way. And I still don't get why nobody ever said anything. And I know this happened to other kids from school as well. I talked to them later on. Like, nobody said anything about them either. So they also found out pretty recent, and they were shocked, because if the teachers had actually done the job and noticed that things were really different, because I promise you that there would not have been a mistake made if they actually had paid any attention. Like, the difference between me and everybody else was so incredibly big. It was ridiculous. I mean, sure, I was the quiet kid in class, but it wasn't because I was shy, it was because I was afraid. Because anything that I would say, my answers, I don't know if you've noticed this, but my videos are different in terms of speaking or whatever. I cannot keep to one specific thing because my brain keeps going all over the place. I cannot just keep to one subject, or yeah, it's just and my videos are different because of that, and that's fine. I don't mind being different. I mean, years later, it's a big relief to me to know that anything that happened to me in high school, that none of that was my fault. Like, none of it was my fault. The fact that I did not want to go to school was not my fault. And the relief to that was immense. Because for years I had blamed myself for not getting that dumb piece of paper that would have said, like, she has completed high school. Yeah. I blamed myself for not going to college. And when I found out about autism and how much I was alike, and when I was like, that might be what I have, and I started to talk about it, and they're like, yep, probably. And you know, that's just it was a big thing. It was a really big thing. I cannot tell you like how much relief it was to find out that none of it was actually my fault. So what I want to say with this, especially to those of you who don't really know who, what, or why, if you're a teacher in any kind of capacity, if you notice differences, if you notice that somebody is just way off than everybody else, and you notice them struggling both mentally, what? I was trying to say mentally and physically at the same time, in case you were wondering. But if you notice, you know, somebody really struggling mentally or not understanding certain concepts, you may want to tell their parents like, hey, it's probably nothing, could be nothing, but if it is something, it's better to know than not to. Maybe you should get your kid to to the doctor and discuss these and these things and see if maybe some tests need to be done, right? There is no shame at all for having autism or for having any kind of neurodivergence, anything related to it, right? There is no shame in it. You are the way you are. You are perfect the way you are. And it could really give you some relief to know. So even if you're an adult now and you're like, I recognize this. I know this. This feels like me. You should still get tested, because all of the difficulty that you've been through, maybe even the pain that you've been through, could all be explained by this one thing. I mean, for instance, I've been talking to a friend on Discord, and there have been a couple of lines where I completely don't understand the context, and apparently I had to read it like 10 times, one of the lines, before I really understood what it said. Even though it was probably pretty obvious to other people. And I've had that before, like in conversations, like, I don't understand that. I don't truly understand that. But yeah, it's a bit weird. I mean, yeah. And if you're a parent and you've noticed things that I've mentioned, like being oversensitive to light, being oversensitive to sound, to taste, to touch, to all of those things, right? And you notice your child is a little bit distant, and if they don't like physical contact in a way of giving a hand or giving hugs, don't blame them. Don't tell them that it's wrong. Don't force them to give a hand to somebody, because I've had to do that in the beginning. I would get upset afterwards, or would want to pull back or whatever. It would make me so uncomfortable. But after having to deal with this from child up, I mean, it still makes me incredibly uncomfortable, but I'll do what is asked of me. But hugs are something that is absolutely a no. Unless I have a boyfriend, it's, for everybody else, it's an absolute no. Not even my mom. Like, my mom always said that I did not want hugs as a child, and she found that weird. But yeah, I did not want hugs. I don't feel comfortable with any of that. It feels very intimidating, maybe. It feels wrong. It feels, yeah, it just feels wrong. And if you notice your child being over sensitive in a way of overstimulation, like if they've been somewhere too long and they just cannot handle it and they break down crying or screaming, they're not being aggressive on purpose. They're not doing it to piss you off. Chances are, if they have autism, they're completely overstimulated, and that's just a way of letting it out. Because when I was a teen, I would come home and anything would set me off. Anything at all. Mostly because my mom has a real talent for saying dumb things, like you wouldn't believe. Like, I'm not kidding about that. She really has some things that will make you question, like, okay. But yeah, it's, anything would set me off, right? Especially when I just came home from school. And so usually when I came home from school, when I went to school, I would just start throwing with the doors. I would be screaming at the top of my lungs. I would be crying. not out of sadness, but out of anger. All of that energy, all of that overstimulation had to get out of my body. I could not just keep it locked inside, or I couldn't just bottle it up, right? It's just too much. It's Dealing with my emotions has been probably the biggest struggle, and I'm sorry that this video just turned into 20 minutes. But yeah, it's emotionally I do struggle a lot because I don't always see things that I'm either saying that might be viewed as wrong. And I really try my best. I never have any intention of insulting people or harming people with my words or whatever. But apparently I've said some things in the past that aren't not right. It doesn't happen often or anything. It's only a few times that this has happened, but it was said with the best intentions, but did not come across that way. So awkward. I don't always realize my own actions, right? Again, this is something that could be autism, but also can be just anybody, right? Anybody can make that kind of mistake. But again, really pay attention in your child, or in if you're a teacher, in the children in your class or teenagers in your class, because this is so incredibly important that I didn't even know how to say, right? The amount of trauma that I went through because of everything that happened during high school, during those years, is immense. And I just kept getting blamed by every single adult that I knew. My mom, my dad, the teachers, the school, uh, the headmaster, the, uh, the the doctor, even the normal doctor, because he didn't know my symptoms. He didn't know that something was different. The only thing he saw is that I kept going to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well, and I was trying to get out of school. But yeah, it's been one hell of a thing. And I just hope that maybe somebody will realize, like, hey, maybe, just maybe, this person could have this. Maybe I can save that person from a lot of trouble in the future. And I actually saw something recently on television that was pretty stupid, where there was this sort of message. It was, I'm not 100% sure what to call it right now, but it was on TV, where they said that the number of people with autism and things like that it keeps rising. I'm like, no it doesn't. No it doesn't. We've always been here. It's just that you haven't diagnosed us yet. But we're here, we're struggling. You just haven't taken the time to see it. So I do think that there should be a behavioral therapist at schools. Of course, I doubt a certain president would ever allow that, because of course, with the recent things about diversity and inclusion and all of that being, yeah, you know what I'm saying. If you're not, I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous what is going on over there. I'm not gonna speak on politics. Somebody, or I often get emails asking me about my political views. I will never speak on those in this video or on my YouTube channel for many different reasons. Yeah. I have concerns, but I will not speak on those on my YouTube channel. I'm just not, because I know that that's just gonna cause trouble, that's just gonna cause issues, and it's better not to be bothered with any of those. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it here at 25 minutes. I'm so sorry that this video became some sort of rant. That was not my intention, but I do hope that people will take notice and maybe think about the consequences if you don't pay attention to certain things. Because I went through hell. I went through absolute hell, from being a child to being a teenager, even into my early adult. It's been hell, absolute hell, and I don't know how to deal with that. Right? It's a lot, and I keep itching again. But yeah, so I'm hoping that maybe I can help somebody with this. I hope so. I'm sorry it did not turn out to be the perfect video, but anyways, I'm gonna wish you all a good night. Have a great evening, and I love you all. See you tomorrow. Alright.